So we have been getting lots of questions coming into the offices across the state saying that they've been seeing a lot of damage to their woody ornamental plants. And so we just want to go through just to show you some of the things that are happening across the state. So the boxwood on the left, you can see the damage that's taking place there in the middle. I know my mom has some boxwoods, and every time I go to her house, I'm seeing some winter burn there as well. The middle picture is viburnum, and you'll notice that there's some leaves that are coming out down here, maybe a little bit at the tips, a lot of things that are in the middle there that are totally brown. Then on the right, we have the crepe myrtle, and you'll notice that there's just a little bit of leaves that are coming out along a few of those branches, and then they're really coming out at the bottom. A lot of this up at the top are not leafing out whatsoever. Then some more pictures, heavenly bamboo, and again, they're coming out a lot at the bottom. And you notice at the tops and in the middle, there's no leaves. And then the nandina, only just a little bit showing up here. This is a rose bush on the right side. So if you see a lot of folks, and I've had a couple of calls already talking about the roses and how they're just not leafing out. They just don't look well at all. Couple more pictures here. Here's another nandina. Again, it's really coming out a lot in the bottom. And then this, chances are those are new leaves, but they look brown. So chances are they're not going to actually be doing well. You'd have to test those branches to see. Then in the bottom, we have a shrub rose. And again, it's coming out at the bottom. The top doesn't look very well. And then this plant on the right, it's a golden mop thread leaf false cypress. And I have two in my yard. This is the one that is still alive that's in my yard. My other one actually died. It was healthy last summer, and this spring it was just totally dead. Nothing was coming out of it whatsoever. So just to talk about this, what are some reasons as to why this is actually occurring, and not just in certain locations, but across the state? So the dieback is one, remember last year, most of the state was in some form of a drought. Some of the state was in more of a drought than others, deep drought. So when we have drought, there is a chance that this particular issue with our woody plants called Batracipheria canker is a problem on a lot of our woody shrubs. And this actually occurs when we have extreme drought conditions. So those of you that are in the western part of the state and the southwest may see this actually popping up on some of your woody shrubs. What you have to do is just go ahead and prune out the dead and dying branches. Make sure that you get rid of them just in case there's any kind of a disease in there. Make sure you water those plants after you prune back, because they're starting to try to regrowth and they're using a lot of their energy. So make sure that you water them well. The other thing is take that branch and kind of slightly bend it a little bit, and if it's pliable, it's still alive. If it just kind of bends and sometimes it'll crack, then it definitely is not going to have any living tissue there. And so go ahead and prune it down to where it actually is having some tissue growth that's growing well. The other thing that happened is that if you notice right before Christmas, we had that real bad cold snap where we went from a drastic change of being really nice, almost fall-like temperatures to going down to something that was really, really cold. In Columbia on December 22nd and 23rd, it got down to at least a -8 degrees. I mean, that's a drastic change. So you must remember that these plants have some sort of liquid moving throughout in the xylem and the phloem, water, carbohydrates, sugars that are all moving in some sort of a liquid type of a format. And when temperatures change like that, the plant doesn't have time to acclimate over that quick of a period of time. It usually takes a number of days to get acclimated. And so that liquid inside that plant freezes and it bursts those cells. So the xylem and the phloem, where the water and the food move, is damaged. And so it can't take up water from the roots or can't move any food throughout the entire area where it's been damaged. Go ahead and prune those off. Cut them back as far as you can where the dead wood is. The other thing that we want to look at is that a lot of these different plants will go ahead and come back out, giving some time, and it'll take time before they grow back to the state of what they were before they received any damage. Make sure you test again to where that dead tissue is versus the live tissue. cut below that live tissue line. Make sure you prune all of your bushes before July 1st. Remember, our fall blooming bushes set their buds for flowering in the middle of summer. So we want to make sure that you don't prune after that time frame. Otherwise, you definitely won't have flowers next year. The other thing to know is that if you prune past July 1st, even if it's not a blooming spring bush, that you could have lots of growth, of spurts of growth of that particular bush. And it could be really tender. And if we have a real cold snap early fall, it could do damage once again to that new growth. Water is always important. This is something we kept talking about last year, and I did during the winter months, is that plants really do need to have water. We think that roots of plants go deep when they're trees and shrubs, and a lot of times they don't. They're pretty shallow, about 12 inches into that topsoil there. And so make sure that you water. And we generally say rule of thumb is about 1 inch of water a week. So if we don't get regular precipitation, make sure you pay attention. And especially this year, if you've got damaged woody ornamentals, make sure you water them and keep them watered. And then fertilization, something to think about. The plant is using all of its excess energy to try to refoliate, revitalize that plant and to start growing it. Where it's lost all of the carbohydrates and the sugars in the entire tree or the entire bush, it's lost those now. So it's really trying to use up as much energy as it has. So go ahead and lightly fertilize with a well-balanced fertilizer, but you probably want to make sure that you do a soil test just to see if there are any kind of nutrients that might have been missing in the soil so that you can replenish those back and hopefully get those plants to grow back so that they can be a beautiful bush or shrub that you had in your yard before.